Hello everyone, I'm reading from Autobiography of Yogi, starting at the top of page 22. A blaze of illumination came over me with possession of the amulet. Many dormant memories awakened. The talisman, round and anciently quaint, was covered with Sanskrit characters. I understood that it came from teachers of past lives who were invisibly guiding my steps. A further significance was indeed, but one may not fully unveil the heart of the amulet. There's an asterisk there. It says, the amulet was an astrally produced object, structurally evanescent. Such objects must finally disappear from our earth. See chapter 43. A mantra or sacred chant. Words were inscribed on the talisman. The potencies of sound and of vach, the human voice, have nowhere else been so profoundly investigated as in India. The Om vibration that reverberates throughout the universe, the word or voice of many waters of the Bible, has three manifestations or gunas, those of creation, preservation, and destruction. Each time a man utters a word, he puts into operation one of the three qualities of Om. This is the lawful reason behind the injunction of all scriptures that man should speak the truth. The Sanskrit mantra on the amulet possessed, when correctly pronounced, a spiritually beneficial vibratory potency. The Sanskrit alphabet, ideally constructed, consists of 50 letters, each one carrying a fixed invariable pronunciation. George Bernard Shaw wrote a wise and, of course, witty essay on the phonetic inadequacies of Latin-based English alphabet, in which 26 letters struggle unsuccessfully to bear the burden of sound. With his customary ruthlessness, if the introduction of the English alphabet for the English language cost a civil war, I shall not. If the introduction of an English alphabet for the English language cost a civil war, I shall not begrudge it. Shaw urges the adoption of a new alphabet with 42 characters. See his preface to Wilson's The Miraculous Birth of Language, Philosophical Library, New York. Such an alphabet would approximate the phonic perfection of the Sanskrit, whose use of 50 letters prevents the mispronunciations. The discovery of seals in the Indus Valley is leading a number of scholars to abandon the current theory that India borrowed her Sanskrit alphabet from Semitic sources. A few great Hindu cities have recently unearthed at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, affording proof that eminent culture must have had a long antecedent history on the soil of India, taking us back to an age that can only be dimly surmised. St. Sir John Marshall, Mohenjo-daro and the Indus Civilization, 1931. If the Hindu theory of extremely great antiquity of civilized man on the planet be correct, it becomes possible to explain why the world's most ancient tongue, Sanskrit, is also the most perfect. See page 100. The Sanskrit language. Sir William Jones, founder of the Asiatic Society. Whatever be its antiquity, it is a wonderful structure, more perfect than the Greek, more copious than Latin, and more exquisitely refined than either. Since the revival of classical learning, the Encyclopedia Americana states, there has been no other event in the history of culture as important as the discovery of Sanskrit by Western scholars in the latter part of the 18th century. Linguistic science, comparative grammar, comparative mythology, and the science of religion. Either owe their very existence to the discovery of Sanskrit or were profoundly influenced by its study. Here are photographs of Yogananda's family, his mother, his father, his sister, he and his brother, he and his two sisters. Chapter 3. The Saint with Two Bodies. Father, if I promise to return home without coercion, may I take a sightseeing trip to Benares? My keen love of travel was seldom hindered by Father. He permitted me, even as a mere boy, to visit many cities and pilgrimage spots. Usually one or more of my friends accompanied me. We would travel comfortably on first-class passes provided by my father. His position as a railroad official was fully satisfactory to the nomads in the family. Father promised to give my request due consideration. The next day he summoned me and held out a round-trip pass to Bareilly, from Bareilly to Benares, a number of rupee notes, and 2 letters. I have a business matter to propose to a Benares friend, Kedar Nath Babu. Unfortunately, I have lost his address, but I believe you will be able to get this letter to him through our common friend Swami Pranabananda. The Swami, my brother disciple, has attained an exalted spiritual stature. You will benefit by his company. The second note will serve as your introduction. Father's eyes twinkled as he added, "Mind, no more flights from home." I set forth with the zest of my 12 years, though time has never dimmed my delight for new scenes and strange faces. Reaching Benares, I proceeded immediately to the Swami's residence. The front door was open. I made my way to a long hall-like room on the second floor. A rather stout man, wearing only a loincloth, was seated in lotus posture on a slightly raised platform. His head and unwrinkled face were clean-shaven. A beatific smile played about his lips. To dispel my thought that I had intruded, he greeted me as an old friend. Baba Anand, blessed to my dear one. His welcome was given heartily in a childlike voice. I knelt and touched his feet. "Are you Swami Pranabananda?" He nodded. "Are you Bhagavati's son?" His words were out before I had time to get Father's letter from my pocket. To my astonishment, I handed him the note of introduction, which now seemed superfluous. "Of course, I will locate Kedar Nath Babu for you." The saint again surprised me by his clairvoyance. He glanced at the letter and made a few affectionate references to my parent. "You know, I am enjoying 2 pensions. One is by the recommendation of your father, for whom I once worked in the railway office. The other is by the recommendation of my heavenly Father, for whom I have conscientiously finished my earthly duties in life." I found this remark very obscure. "What kind of pension, sir, do you receive from the Heavenly Father? Does he drop money in your lap?" He laughed. "I mean a pension of fathomless peace, a reward of many years of deep meditation. I never crave money now. My few material needs are amply provided for. Later you will understand the significance of a second pension." Abruptly terminating our conversation, the saint became gravely motionless. A sphinx-like air enveloped him. At first his eyes sparkled as if observing something of interest, then grew dull. I felt abashed at his soliloquy. He had not yet told me how I might meet Father's friend. A trifle restlessly I looked about me in the bare room, empty except for us two. My idle gaze took in his wooden sandals lying under the platform seat. "Little sir, don't get worried. The man you wish to see will be with you in a half an hour." There's an asterisk here. Choto Mahasaya is the term by which a number of Indian saints address me. It means little sir. The yogi was reading my mind, a feat not too difficult at the moment. Yet he fell into inscrutable silence. When my watch informed me that 30 minutes had elapsed, the Swami aroused himself. I think Kedarnath Babu is nearing the door, he said. I heard somebody coming up the stairs. An amazed incomprehension arose suddenly. My thoughts raced in confusion. How is it possible that my father's friend has summoned to this place without the help of a messenger? The Swami has spoken to me, to no one but me, since my arrival. I unceremoniously quit the room and descended the steps. Halfway down I met a thin, fair-skinned man of medium height. He appeared to be in a hurry. Are you Kedarnath Babu? Excitement colored my voice. Yes. Are you not Bhagavati's son, who has been waiting here to meet me? He smiled in friendly fashion. Sir, how do you happen to come here? I felt baffled resentment over his inexplicable presence. Everything is mysterious today. Less than an hour ago, I had just finished my bath in the Ganges when Swami Pranabhanahadada approached me. I have no idea how he knew I was there at the time. Bhavagati's son is waiting for you in my apartment, he said. Will you come with me? I gladly agreed. As we proceeded hand in hand, the Swami in his wooden sandals was strangely able to outpace me, though I wore these stout walking shoes. How long will it take you to reach my place? Paranandaji suddenly halted and asked me this question. About a half an hour. I have something else to do at present. He gave me an enigmatical glance. I must leave you behind. You can join me in my house, where Bhagavati's son and I will be awaiting you. Before I could remonstrate, he dashed swiftly past me and disappeared in the crowd. I walked here as fast as possible. This explanation only increased my bewilderment. I had inquired how long he had known the Swami. We met a few times last year, but not recently. I was very glad to see him again today at the bathing ghat. I cannot believe my ears. Am I losing my mind? Did you meet him in a vision, or did you actually see him, touch his hand, and hear the sound of his feet? I don't know what you are driving at. He flushed angrily. I'm not lying to you. Can't you understand that only through the Swami could I have known you were waiting at this place for me? Why, that man, Swami Pranabhananda, has not left my sight a moment since I first came about an hour ago. I blurted out the whole story and repeated the conversations the Swami and I had had. His eyes opened wide. Are you living in this material age, or are we dreaming? I never expected to witness such a miracle in my life. I thought this Swami was just an ordinary man, but now I find he can materialize an extra body and work through it. Together we entered the saint's room. Kedarnath Babu pointed to the shoes under the platform seat. Look, those are the very sandals he was wearing at the ghat, he whispered. He was clad only in a loincloth, just as I see him now. As the visitor bowed before him, the saint turned to us with a quizzical smile. Why are you stupefied at all this? The subtle unity of the phenomenal word is not hidden from true yogis. I instantly see and converse with other disciples in distant Calcutta. They can similarly transcend at will every obstacle of gross matter. It is probably an effort to stir spiritual ardor in my young breast that the Swami had condescended to tell me of his powers of astral radio and television. And here's another asterisk. In its own way, physical science is affirming the validity of the laws discovered by yogis through the mental science. For example, a demonstration that man has televisional powers was given on November 26, 1934 at the Royal University of Rome. Dr. Giuseppe Calagras, professor of neuropsychology, pressed certain parts of a subject's body and on the opposite side, and the subject responded, each with minute description of persons and objects on the opposite side of the wall. Dr. Calagras told the professors that if certain areas of the skin are agitated, the subject is given suprasensorial impressions, enabling him to see objects that he could not otherwise perceive. To enable his subject to discern things on the other side of the wall, Professor Calagras pressed a spot to the right of the thorax for 15 minutes. Dr. Calagras said that when certain spots of the body are agitated, the subject can see objects at any distance, regardless of whether they have ever before seen those objects. But instead of enthusiasm, I experienced only an awe-stricken fear, inasmuch as I was destined to undertake my divine search through one particular guru, Sri Yukteswar, whom I had not yet met. I felt no inclination to accept Pranahabhanananda as my teacher. I glanced at him doubtfully, wondering if it were he or his counterpart before me. The master sought to banish my disquietude by bestowing a soul-awakening gaze, and by some inspiring words about his guru. Lahari Mahasaya was the greatest yogi I ever knew. He was divinity itself in the form of flesh. To a disciple, I reflected, could materialize an extra fleshly form at will. What miracles indeed could he be barred to his master? I will tell you how priceless is a guru's help. I used to meditate with another disciple for 8 hours every night. We had to work at the railway office during the day. Finding difficulty in carrying on my clerical duties, I desired to devote my whole time to God. For 8 years I persevered, meditating half the night. I had wonderful results. Tremendous spiritual perceptions illumined my mind, but a little veil always remained between me and the infinite. Even with superhuman earnestness, I found the final irrevocable union to be denied me. One evening I paid a visit to Lahara Mahasaya and pleaded for his divine intervention. My importunities continued during the entire night. Angelic Guru, my spiritual anguish is such that I can no longer bear my life without meeting the great beloved face to face. What can I do? What can I do? You must meditate more profoundly. I am appealing to thee, O God, my Master. I see thee materialized before me in a physical body. Bless me that I may perceive thee in thy infinite form. Lahara Mahasaya extended his hand in a benign gesture. You may go now and meditate. I have interceded for you with Brahma. Another asterisk. God, in his aspect of creator, from Sanskrit root birth, B-R-I-H, to expand. When Emerson's poem Brahma appeared in the Atlantic Monthly in 1857, most of the readers were bewildered. Emerson chuckled. Tell them, he said, to say Jehovah instead of Brahma, and they will not feel any perplexity. Immeasurably uplifted, I returned to my house. In meditation that night, the burning goal of my life was achieved. Now I ceaselessly enjoy the spiritual pension. Never from that day has the blissful Creator remained hidden from my eyes behind any screen of delusion. Paranabhanahanda's face was suffused with divine light. The peace of another world entered my heart. All fear had fled. The saint made a further confidence. Some months later, I returned to Lahamara Masaya and tried to thank him for his bestowal of the infinite gift. Then I mentioned another matter. Divine Guru, I can no longer work in the office. Please release me. Brahma keeps me continuously intoxicated. Apply for a pension from your company. What reason shall I give so early in my service? Say what you feel. The next day I made my application. The doctor inquired the grounds of my premature request. At work I find a superpowering sensation rising in my spine. It permeates my whole body, unfitting me for the performance of my duties. And there's a cross here. In deep meditation, the first experience of spirit is on the altar of the spine, and then in the brain. The torrential bliss is overwhelming, but the yogi learns to control his outward manifestations. At the time of our meeting, Pranahambana Ananda was indeed a fully illumined master, but the closing days of his business life was occurrent many years earlier. He had not yet become irrevocably established in Nikabintu Kalpa Sadami. See page 278-477. In that perfect and unshakable state of consciousness, a yogi finds no difficulty in performing any of his worldly duties. After his retirement, Brahmahananda wrote Pranab Gita, a profound commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, available in Hindu and Bengali. The power of appearing in more than one body is a Siddh high yogic power mentioned in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras 265-266. The phenomena of bilocation has been exhibited in the lives of many saints down through the ages. In the story of Teresa Neumann, Bruce Publishing Company, A.P. Schumberger describes the several occasions on which this Christian saint has appeared before and conversed with distant persons needing her help. Back to the book. Without further questioning, the physician recommended me highly for a pension, which I soon received. I know the divine will of Lahara Masaya worked through the doctor and the railroad officials, including your father. Automatically they obeyed the great Guru's spiritual direction and freed me for a life of unbroken communion with the beloved. After this extraordinary revelation, Swami Pranabhananda retired into one of his long silences. As I was taking leave, touching his feet reverently, he gave me this blessing. Your life belongs to the path of renunciation and yoga. I shall see you again with your father later on. Years brought fulfillment of both these predictions. Kandar Nath Babu walked by my side in the gathering darkness. I delivered father's letter, which my companion read under a street lamp. Your father suggests that I take a position in the Calcutta office in his railway company. How pleasant to look forward to one at least of the pensions that Swami Brahmananda enjoys. But it is impossible. I cannot leave Benares. Alas, two bodies are not yet for me. Chapter 4. My interrupted flight towards the Himalayas. Leave your classroom on some trifling pretext and engage a hackney carriage. Stop in the lane where no one in my house can see you. These were my final instructions to Amar Mitter, a high school friend who planned to accompany me to the Himalayas. We had chosen the following day for our flight. Precaution was necessary, as my brother Anatta exercised a vigilant eye. He was determined to foil the plans to escape that he suspected were uppermost in my mind. The ambulant, like a spiritual yeast, was silently at work within me. I hope to find amid the Himalayan snows the master whose face often appeared to me in visions. The family was living now in Calcutta, where father had been permanently transferred. Following the patriarchal Indian custom, Ananta had brought his bride to live in our home. There, in a small attic room, I engaged in daily meditations and prepared my mind for the divine search. The memorable morning arrived with inauspicious rain. Hearing the wheels of Amar's carriage in the road, I hastily tied together a blanket, a pair of sandals, 2 loincloths, a string of prayer beads, Lahara Mahashoya's picture, and a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. This bundle I threw from my 3rd-story window. I ran down the steps past my uncle buying fish at the door. "What is the excitement?" His gaze roved suspiciously over my person. I gave him a non-committal smile and walked to the lane. Retrieving my bundle, I joined Amar with conspiratorial caution. We drove to Kachandindi Chaku, a merchandise center. For months we had been saving our tiffin money to buy English clothes, knowing that my clever brother could easily play the part of detective. We thought to outwit him by wearing European garb. On the way to the station, we stopped for my cousin Jatan Ghosh, whom I called Jatanda. He was a new convert longing for a guru in the Himalayas. He donned the new suit we had in readiness. Well camouflaged, we hoped, a deep elation possessed our hearts. All we need now are canvas shoes. I led my companions to a shop displaying rubber-soled footwear. Articles of leather got only through the slaughter of animals should be absent on this holy trip. I halted on the street to remove the leather cover from my Bhagavad Gita and the leather straps from my English-made Sola topi (helmet). At the station, we bought tickets to Burnwan, where we planned to transfer to Hardwar in the Himalayan foothills. As soon as the train, like ourselves, was in flight, I gave utterance to a few of my glorious anticipations. "Just imagine," I ejaculated, "we shall be initiated by the masters and experience the trance of cosmic consciousness. Our flesh will be charged with such magnetism that wild animals of the Himalayas will come tamely near us. Tigers will be no more than meek house cats awaiting our caresses." This remark, picturing a prospect I considered entrancing both metaphorically and literally, brought an enthusiastic smile from Amar, but Jatinda averted his gaze, directing it through the window at the scampering landscape. "Let the money be divided in 3 portions," Jatinda broke a silence with this suggestion. "Each of us should buy his own ticket to Burnwanda. Thus no one at the station will surmise that we are running away together." I unexpectedly agreed. At dusk our train stopped at Burdwan. Jatinda entered the tickets office. Amar and I sat on the platform. We waited 15 minutes, then made unavailing inquiries. Searching in all directions, we shouted Jatinda's name with the urgency of fright, but he had faded into the dark unknown surrounding the little station. I was completely unnerved, shocked to a peculiar numbness. That God would countenance this depressing episode. The romantic occasion of my first carefully planned flight with him was cruelly marred. "Amar, we must return home." I was weeping like a child. Jatinda's callous departure is an ill omen. This trip is doomed to failure. "Is this your love for the Lord? Can't you stand the little test of a treacherous companion?" Through Ammar's suggestion of a divine test, my heart steadied itself. We refreshed ourselves with famous Burdwan sweetmeats, Sibabong food for the goddess, and Machakar nuggets of sweet pearl. In a few hours we entrained for Hardwar via Barali. Changing trains the following day in Margolsiraya, we discussed a vital matter as we waited on the platform. Okay, that's it for today. I'm in the middle of page 36.